What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the kickoff event for Money Mondays, a new live show by Creator Match where we interview creators talking about how they're making money on LinkedIn and also brands talking about how they're spending money on LinkedIn. And I cannot be more excited to kick off this event with a very special friend, creator, and even someone on the brand side, Brandon. So I'm going to welcome Brandon to our event today, and I'd love for him to kick it off. So Brandon, how's it going today, man?
What's up, AJ? I'm good. I'm excited to be here. We're doing it.
There's honestly nobody else that I'd rather have to kick off this event. I think you're someone that you call yourself a creatorpreneur, someone who's both a creator and entrepreneur. There's so many topics that we're going to talk about today on every side. So if we have people in the audience who are creators, on the brand side, agency side, or even just people who are generally excited about this space, it's a brand new space and you're someone who's crushing it. So I cannot be more excited. And one thing as well, just for some housekeeping for today. So obviously, we're talking about how to land your first LinkedIn brand deal, which is a very exciting topic for everybody in the audience. And then also, this series is really structured around no BS and no fluff. So these events are going to be action-packed. They're going to be quick. They're going to be about 30 minutes. You can ask your questions in the comments. It will also be recorded on our YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube. And we'll have a bonus at the end for early access. So Brandon, as we dive in, I would love for us to better understand who's actually tuning in. So I'd love for everybody, I see the comments are starting to pop off. I see Sarah, Chris, Tyler. So I'd love if you can share who you are and kind of what best describes you. Are you a creator, a brand on the agency side? I see, Chris saying, am I a LinkedIn millionaire yet? I see Tyler saying, let the countdown begin. So take a second and let us know who's in the audience so we can better fine tune kind of our topic for today. So I'll give everybody a second to kind of add their comments here. I see someone saying they're super excited for this kickoff. So let us know who you are. So I see Emmanuel, amazing, you're a creator. I see Marcus, creator. I see some people as well are kind of in both areas, creator and marketer. So keep adding comments, letting us know who you are, so we can make sure that we really fine tune our discussion for today. So Brandon, again, you are not just a typical creator. Can you give a brief bio on kind of who you are and what you do at Kickstarter?
Sure. So, hey everyone, my name is Brandon Smithwrick. I'm head of content at Kickstarter. What head of content means is that I get the opportunity to oversee a lot of our content marketing efforts as well as the creative. So we do everything we can to help creators succeed through crowdfunding.
And also on the creator side, obviously I think everybody here has heard of Kickstarter. What does being a creator mean to you? And how do you also kind of balance being someone full-time on the brand side, but also being so deep in the creator space?
For sure. That's a very common question. First, I think being a creator is really you wanting to make something for yourself. We have this conversation about, are you an entrepreneur? Are you an influencer? Are you a creator? Like, how do people identify? But I really think if you are building something unique to yourself and you want to just create, maybe say content, right? Or you want to create a product, you are a creator. You are creating something unique that's never been done before. And even when you look at like balancing this, I started my career journey about 2 years ago. Officially on LinkedIn. I've done little things here and there outside of that, but it really was just because I wanted to give people knowledge that I didn't have when I was coming up in this marketing game. There's no like textbook thing of here's how social media works, here's how digital marketing works. There's a lot of different opinions, and I just kind of shared my opinions with the space, and they just, reacted in a positive manner. I just never stopped.
And I think what's also so interesting, Brandon, I'm sure you agree with this, is this space is brand new, right? LinkedIn's been around for 21 years, but most brands don't even know that there are influencers or creators on LinkedIn. Like the amount of discussions I have on a daily basis where brands aren't aware of what's going on. But also alternatively, the creators don't realize that the massive brand that they've built and the amazing content that they make, that you're able to monetize. And obviously today, not everybody loves Mondays, but our goal is to make you love Mondays when we have a Money Mondays event. And it's going to be such an insightful series. So also to introduce myself, my name is AJ Eckstein. I'm the host, obviously, of the show and founder and CEO of Creator Match. And to give you some context kind of where I play around in this space. So we found a creator match. We match brands with LinkedIn creators. So every day we're chatting with either brands and agencies wanting to partner with creators or trying to get them to partner, as well as creators trying to realize their potential. And for credibility, we've done hundreds of sponsored posts to date. We've worked with creators around the world. So LinkedIn creators are near and dear to our heart. And there's so much that we can unpack from just our experience. So Brandon, the first question I really want to ask you, and I made a post about this today on LinkedIn. Nobody ever forgets that first paycheck that they get as a creator. I think everybody here, and I'd love in the comments, just type in paycheck. If you remember that first paycheck that you have made, maybe you haven't made it yet and you're close, and we're going to help you get there. But walk me through that first paycheck as a LinkedIn creator, who the brand was, what the strategy and the content was for, maybe what the rate was. Obviously, that's changed a lot now. But what was that first paycheck like for you?
Yeah, it's very different because, again, I think when we talk about monetization, there's different pathways. You can do sponsored posts, you can do brand deals, you can be on a panel moderating or even speaking. So for me, I was like looking into this. I was doing a lot more speaking engagements and other kind of monetization strategies outside of my first post. But for my first post, I think I actually lowballed myself transparently, charged about $350. And it was for an AI company called Rask AI, and they basically can like convert your content into various different languages. Being a content marketer, I was like, this is perfect. I've used it in the past, so I wanted to kind of promote it. So I just like threw out a number, right? They said yes immediately, and they reached out to me via DMs. At that moment, it really did occur to me that no one on LinkedIn is talking about rates. No one's talking about how much you can make on LinkedIn. No one's talking about how much you should charge for a post. You can look up like how much do TikTokers charge, how much do people making content for Instagram charge, but there's no database or resource for creators. So really from there, I just started like bumping my fee up, doing more organic content, but occasionally just weaving in some sponsored content. And I just kind of like learned kind of what the average fee was from there.
And you mentioned obviously the rate of your first paychecks can be very different than what it is today. What do you think creators need to know about getting that first paycheck? Like before we talk about how to scale and get more paychecks, I think most people in the crowd today on the creator side have never gotten a paycheck, period.
Yeah.
Or on the brand side have never paid a LinkedIn creator. On the agency side, never worked with a brand who wants to pay a LinkedIn creator. So how do you get that first one? Because I think in anything, the first is always the hardest. For us at Creator Match, the hardest one was our first campaign. And after you do one campaign, you do 2, 4, and kind of just snowball. So how do you get that first paycheck as a LinkedIn creator?
For sure. You know, there's this quote that it sounds crazy, but it's harder to make $100 online than it is 1,000. Because once you figure out like, here's how I can make $100, from there, it's just rinse and repeat. So I do think how you can make your first dollar, I do strongly believe that the money or the monetization from your content will be a byproduct. It's not really the goal. I think you want to focus on building your community, finding out your niche, finding out your lane, your voice. Like, how do I want to make content? What's unique to me? The partnerships will flow in that way. And once you've done one partnership, make sure that you're getting those analytics, you're leveraging them, you're pitching yourself to brands, saying, hey, I've worked with this brand, would love to work with your brand. Cool. Now, hey, brand 3, I've worked with this brand and this brand, would love to work with your brand, right? So it is about like building up that resume that you can kind of point to. I would also just look into what brands are currently activating on LinkedIn if you are a creator who wants to do partnerships. So if you've seen, like, look at the slides you've referenced, right? I see Teachable, I see AG1, I see all these companies. All right, cool. Let me see if they want to do more LinkedIn partnerships. But if you're a brand who in the space and you think that your audience may not be on LinkedIn, I would also counteract that, because LinkedIn is a platform like any other social media platform. And you have decision makers here, you have high performers here, you have people here who are knowledge seekers. And there's so many brands from Lyft to Notion that are activating on LinkedIn that we use every single day.
And did you see that Lyft campaign, by the way?
I did. I posted about it too.
Yeah, if Bree's in the crowd here, shout out Bree and the Lyft team. But I think again, for everyone listening, whether you're on the creator, brand, or agency side, a car company, like car hailing company, like Lyft, is getting into the LinkedIn game, right? So any use case that you thought, oh, my brand wouldn't work on LinkedIn, I think there's always use cases to think about, especially if your competitors aren't doing it. I think that's a good reason why to do it. And also on the creator side, when you have a brand that hasn't done anything on LinkedIn, explain why it's a huge value to play in a blue ocean of opportunity rather than a red ocean of competition.
For sure.
That same talk track with brands saying you want to try something new where there's no competition. Also, as you know, the creators, there's mass supply of creators. So getting a hold of Brandon right now is much easier than when it will be a year from now when there's so much. And we'll talk about inbound in a second.
Yeah.
But even the early days, like a couple months ago, Brandon, you were dying to do brand deals and you've never, let's say, done them before. Now you kind of have the pick of the litter because you have done multiple before, right?
For sure.
And the opportunity is massive right now. So obviously this is a Money Monday series, and it wouldn't make sense if we didn't talk about money.
Yep.
Let's dive deeper into the opportunity at hand for creators. So let's talk about on a month basis. What is the most amount of money that you've made or that maybe you've heard other creator friends on LinkedIn make in a month or just in a deal size?
Yeah. I know a bunch of creators who literally won't do a post for like less than between 3 and 5K, if I'm being totally honest. So whenever we talk about like how much money you can make, I always say that there is no ceiling, right? There's always a floor, right? There's always like, hey, I could have a 0 month, right? But there really is no ceiling. There's no cap on how much you can make as a creator on LinkedIn. It is about your volume. It is about your posting cadence. If you want to do 2 posts a day, hypothetically, you could do posts where one's organic, one's paid. I got 2 organic this day, got paid this day. For me personally, I've had months where I've made as low as 3K. I've had months where I've made as much as 18K. So it really does range. And I do think it's about building up a system and a team where you can always have an influx of partnerships, your influx of organic content to still nurture your audience. But I've had amazing months. I think this year I'm on track to do about 68K. I'm trying to bump that up, but yeah, it doesn't stop.
68K. And for everyone saying, and this is just a creator, Brandon, by the way, you have an incredible brand and you've done so many incredible things. You're such an incredible speaker. And I saw you speak in New York. Shout out to Brett Dashevsky for Creator Economy NYC if he's in the crowd. But what's interesting is you don't necessarily have a brand with millions of followers. And I think on other platforms, like let's say on a TikTok or YouTube, to really make money as a creator, you need to have a massive audience. But what's so interesting, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and pull up your LinkedIn profile. You have 34,000 followers. And again, that's still an incredible amount, but it's not something that's so out of reality that it's impossible to get there. And I see someone said, what's the minimum amount of followers on LinkedIn you need to have before pitching brands? So let's start there. I mean, do you think there's a follower count that you need to have per se?
I don't know if there's a follower count. I do think there's something around credibility. I do think there's something around like authority. I do think there's something around trust with your audience. You could absolutely find a brand that wants to experiment and they're going to go the micro route and they want to work with a creator who has 2,000 followers, a creator that has 3,000 followers. Even when I was at the 3,000 follower mark, I think I was still trying to do things with like later social media company, Sprout Social, because I just grew up within the social space. So because I already had that rapport, I already was talking about social media, my following didn't really stop me or hinder me from doing more partnerships then. I'm doing a lot more now in terms of volume and amount, but when I had 3,000 followers, I was still doing partnerships. So I think whatever space you're in, it's still about building up that topical authority. So if you are a financial creator on LinkedIn, you want to make sure you're still posting a bunch of content, whether it's around financial literacy, how to be financial tips for entrepreneurs, maybe financial tips for creators. And you can align with brands that still want to test within that market. But I don't believe there's a limit.
And we've done, at Creator Match, we've done deals with creators as small as 4,000 followers. And again, if you really dedicate your time and your craft, 4,000 is not that unattainable. But if you have a good audience, you have a good niche, especially a very high value niche, you don't need millions of followers. Because also the higher the follower count, the lower the engagement rate. And brands really want to go after a high engagement rate. So Brandon, next question I have, you mentioned, I think you said, 30K plus in terms of those top months.
Yeah.
What were some of those brands? And I'd love to pull it up right now and actually kind of see what the creative looked like for some of those sponsorships. So what were some notable brands that you remember of deals that you've done on LinkedIn?
The most recurring one lately has been Amazon Business. But Amazon has so many subsidiaries. It's like Buy with Prime. So you'll see I've done videos for them. I've done organic posts for them. And I love this extension because it really just helps you find the post so quickly also.
And then walk me through, so Amazon's crazy, by the way, huge congrats. How did Amazon come to be on LinkedIn? Amazon Small Business Success Studio. I mean, how did that even come to be? What was the content strategy for it? How can other creators or brands, take away something like this?
For sure. And I do think a lot of times when we think about partnerships, we think about, cool, who's at that company, who has, creator in their title, who has partnerships in their title, who has campaign manager in the title. But this came through a PR company. So I do think some people need to realize, like, some of these bigger partnerships won't come directly from that brand. They have a PR agency, or they have a agency of some sort that's managing all the stuff for them. When I asked, they just say you show up on a list, right? So I think that's super tough for me to give insight around how to show up on this random ambiguous list. But I do think, again, that's a byproduct of your organic content. That's about you posting, you having an authentic brand, you building up topical authority, you having high engagement with your organic posts. Now, these brands now want to align with you and work with you because of that. I do think another brand I worked with was Notion, which I talked about a ton organically before we even did our first partnership. And my audience was really like bought in, like, how do you use Notion? What do you do with Notion? So by the time I talked about it, it was just pretty organic.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so awesome. And again, when I saw Amazon, I was like, what is Amazon doing on LinkedIn? And then again, there's always a use case. And I see some questions around what extension are we using. So one of the, and I guess we're going to jump ahead here, but we're going to go ahead and give early beta access to our Creator Match Chrome extension. It's one of the best ways to grow and monetize on LinkedIn. And I'll just jump to the slide at the end. So stay tuned. But this is an incredible tool, and you can see kind of how I'm using it, where you can really type any keyword. You could do advanced filtering, sorting, etc. And we use this to actually source creators. So that's how we're looking at kind of what deals Brandon has done. And also a huge takeaway for both the creators and the brands. A huge thing that we've learned is you want to have a resume or essentially a portfolio of brands that you've worked with, right? So if I'm on Brandon's profile here, the first thing that I can see, all of the green tiles are sponsorships, right? So I can click into any of these and see it. And I'm sure, Brandon, you remember these like it was yesterday. This one was from Amazon as an ad, right? And we go to, let's say, this one, and this one was, I believe it was the Skillshare one, right? So if I'm a creator in Brandon's niche, I'm going to go through here. I can go to posts as well, and I'm going to filter by sponsored content. I'm going to sort high to low likes, and I can kind of get an idea of what brands are running sponsorships in this niche to then do very targeted outreach. If I'm on the brand side, I'm curious what competitors in my niche are also partnering with creators on LinkedIn. So let's talk about outreach. I think that's a great next segue.
Yeah.
So you are a very, atypical creator in that you get a lot of inbound.
Yeah.
Have you ever sent outbound, or also how do you even set yourself up to get inbound?
Great question. I think to set yourself up for getting inbound, again, it's because you're posting a lot of organic content. They already see you as a creator, or possibly a thought leader within that space, and they want to align with you. I do think it's about niching down, right? So I only talk about a couple things on LinkedIn. If I make a post, even though I love financial literacy, right? If I make a post about it, it probably won't resonate. I talk about social media. I talk about content marketing. I talk about entrepreneurship. I talk about career development. I talk about personal development, because those are all things that kind of relate. I might throw in some personal branding tips in there. But really, I'm gearing towards creators and entrepreneurs who want to be fluent in content marketing and social. That has allowed me to have a pathway for a lot of inbound leads, whether that is, I'm very easy to locate. In my bio, you'll see like booking email, right? When I have my link in bio, you'll see more information there. When it comes time for like outbound, I do think I want to reach out to brands who I would love to partner with, who maybe I'm a personal fan of and I want my community to talk about. I'll also just naturally incorporate posts that are not sponsored, highlighting brands I love, whether it's my tech stack, brands I've discovered recently that I can't get enough of. You then have those company profiles chiming in on your LinkedIn posts, and they now discover you, and now you're on their radar.
And that is such a good strategy. I've used the same thing where there's just certain brands that I love and I will organically talk about them. Like we use Notion for our campaign briefs and we get so many compliments on it. So I continue to talk about that. When I do that outreach to Notion, it's not just saying, hey, I'm a creator, sponsor me, or hey, I've worked with competitors in this niche, but hey, here's sample content that I've made mentioning Notion. and it performed well, right? And if you can hit on all those things, you're de-risking yourself as a creator to partner with. And on the brand side, they're asking themselves, who is the least risky creator to partner with? There's a lot of creators.
Yeah.
So the creators that go above and beyond and do that very targeted outreach. So if you can see, okay, well, you've partnered with Brandon, who's in my niche. I've mentioned you in content, almost like in a UGC fashion. Maybe I have an affiliate link in there and I can track link clicks as well. And it performed well. And I've done sponsorships in that niche. All those 4 things plus solid engagements and analytics is just a huge value add. And another thing as well is analytics is a big thing. So what analytics have you seen do brands really care about? And we're going to pull up your analytics here on the screen. And what's so awesome is everything's up and to the right. But what analytics do brands really care about when they're partnering with creators on LinkedIn?
Brands do still care about impressions. I do think they want that reach. They want, that share of voice. I think they also care about your engagement, comments, right? What's your community talking about? I think the great thing about LinkedIn is that when AJ likes a post, his whole community sees that he liked the post, right? So they also want to know, like, what are all the reactions, the shares of that post? But truly, they just want to know that, you have an authentic voice in the space. You're building up a community that's very engaged. So I think everything from impressions, comments, shares, reactions really just paints that better picture.
And one of the coolest things, Brandon, around analytics, and we do a ton of sourcing for creators, I think the first campaign that we ever did, or one of the most notable ones that I can remember, was from Teachable. And what was interesting, as we go to Teachable here, I'm going to hide repost. And this was obviously your speaking event, and we'll actually filter by sponsored. So what's interesting is and this is also a huge takeaway for brands and agencies. So a lot of brands and agencies just want to sell in their content. Like, I'm partnering with Brandon, I'm paying him, let's say $1,000 for a piece of content. I need him to sell something. If it didn't convert, then that was a failed campaign. What was so interesting about this specific campaign is we actually linked to a free lead magnet, right? And you can see here that this actually went to a report, a completely free report. And it's helpful for Teachable because they're collecting emails in their ICP, or ideal customer profile, right? So this is, again, one of the first campaigns that we did. It was so fun. They're also a partner of Money Monday series. So shout out Teachable. I've launched a couple courses with Teachable. And you spoke on a panel, I think, in New York 2 weeks ago with Teachable. Yeah, which is awesome. So this is all, again, so interesting. And I want to dive back into rates. Okay. So what is your current rate today? And how do you price content? Because the question we get all the time, especially in DMs, is like, okay, I want to do sponsorships. How do I price my content?
That's a great question. I do think for creators, you need to think about your time versus the value you'll deliver. So one thing for me, right, if it is a text post or a text with image, is going to be a lot different. So between those posts, it'll be anywhere from 1,200 to say 1,500. If it's a video, right, I need to script, I need to shoot, and I need to edit, right? That's a lot more time that's being taken. So that needs to be at least between 2,000 and 3,000. So I do think you want to factor in like my time versus the value I would deliver. And again, you can have a myriad of different content mixes or content formats within your posts. It can be anything from text and image, links. Maybe you want to do a stat post. Maybe you want to do a carousel post. Maybe you want to do a video post. So just think about the format you're going to deliver for this brand. And again, having a backlog of your high performing content that is organic, I think is very helpful, because they're going to be able to see, here's what a video post gets in terms of engagement. Here's what a carousel post gets in terms of engagement. When I do these infographics, here's what they get. So you really want to test different formats, test your hooks. You want to know like kind of your brand and what really works well for you.
Another thing, Brandon, I'm curious what you wish both creators, brands, and agencies did differently. And I'll kind of kick off this quick topic. Okay. So creators, we source hundreds of creators a week for campaigns that we're doing at Creator Match. And one of the big things when we're asking and negotiating rates is the creators will send us examples of their content, right? Because you obviously know what performs best. Mm-hmm. But they try to sell on their most viral pieces of organic content. And the reason why that's an issue, without giving anything else, is I don't know better, because impressions are private to the creator. So if I reach out to you, Brandon, I'm like, hey, we are working with, let's say, Notion, and they want to see some of your example content and how it performed the results. And you send us 3 posts that hit 10 million each. I'm expecting 10 million, and I'm going to price you on 10 million.
Right.
You know that, let's say your average is 10,000 impressions, but 3 posts popped off to 10 million.
Yeah.
So there's such a disconnect. So let's say that the post does super well and gets 100,000 impressions, which is 10 times the amount of what you normally get on average. You think that's a success. It's a failure to us and to the brand that we're representing because we price you on virality.
Yeah.
So I think it's super important, especially in the beginning, if you have not done a lot of brand deals before, your goal should be to build your portfolio of brands and case studies to get those true averages, clicks, because yes, you can show those viral posts, but if that's all you show, that's all you get priced at, and you have to beat your virality, and it's very hard to beat your virality. And there's a disconnect after that first partnership. And that's why a lot of creators don't understand what happened to the long-term deals. Long-term deals exist, but you have to prove your worth in the beginning. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a great point, because you don't want to over-promise and under-deliver. You kind of want to do the opposite. So that's a great just concept in general, because I do think a lot of times you go off of, let me start from top to bottom, right? What got the most engagement, and from what got the most engagement, I'm going to show you this, but it does paint an inauthentic picture, because on average, and we know this, LinkedIn impressions also have dropped in recent months, where those top virality posts are kind of rare. So you want to make sure that you're giving that brand an authentic and more accurate picture of what you're going to be able to deliver to them. I do think when we talk about what creators could do different also is make sure they're not over indexing in branded or sponsored posts, because you will kind of lose that engagement naturally, because your audience will just see you as hashtag ad. So even with like my own content, I try to make sure that I'm never over indexing in sponsored content. I'll be very selective about what brands I want to align myself with. Because again, once you've been attached to a brand that you don't even use and people can kind of see this is just an ad or a money grab, then you're going to lose all that authenticity, and your posts over time will get a lot less engagement.
And I always say it takes years to build trust and build an audience, and it takes a second to ruin and lose everything. And you know this, especially working with a lot of brands, is as you start to partner with more and more brands, your voice becomes more influential, and whatever you say has carry behind it.
Yes.
So now if you partner with a brand, let's say FTX, throwing FTX in here, and things, as we know, didn't go super well with them, you lose that trust, and now I don't trust you as much as a user or audience to a creator. I think some of the other things that, I wish brands did differently is they compare LinkedIn as a channel to a TikTok or an Instagram. And I think we know that the reach is very different on LinkedIn. But the difference in that, yes, you're not going to go as viral on LinkedIn as you would a TikTok, and the CPM will be much higher. But the difference is that one follower, one user on LinkedIn is just more valuable, especially if you're going after someone who's a professional, more disposable income, higher educated, a more trust and safe platform. So what do you think you wish brands did differently in this partnership world on LinkedIn?
I think plus one to everything you said, I do wish brands would also just see LinkedIn as a channel where, again, the user base is, I think, a lot more valuable, in my opinion. You have people who are, again, seeking knowledge. They're not riddled with like bots the same way all these other channels are. You do have a lot of people on LinkedIn who are highly engaged users. They are users who are sharing their opinions, or people who are always seeking, like, what are the gems? Who got like no gatekeeping? Like, is it anything from resume tips to people who are saying here's a job? Like, there are always people on LinkedIn seeking a thing, versus when we're on these other platforms where we're just expecting to be entertained. So even within that mindset, you just interact with the platform very differently. And I do think brands, when they come to LinkedIn, thinking, all right, it's not going to be the same as our TikTok strategy. It's not going to be the same as our Instagram strategy. It's going to be a little bit different, because we're also talking to a professional audience, talking to an audience who maybe wants to lean into more of a professional tone. And we're also going to get a mix of kind of future, let's say, clientele of future customers.
And my last thing, it's kind of crazy, Brandon. We're almost at the half-hour mark. I know it was quick, it was fast, action-packed. So if I'm walking away today, and we're going to give you a two-part question. As a creator, and then we'll move into the brand/agency side. So if I'm a creator, what are a few action-oriented steps I could take to land my first brand deal as a creator?
I think a lot of creators probably aren't posting enough. So I would say, like, just be consistent with your posting, figure out your content strategy. One thing I do like about the extension is it can tell you like what time other creators are posting, what time on average, like what, you know, so I do think there's a science to it. And that it took me some time to figure out like, what are my hooks? What time of day do I need to post? What days do I get more engagement than others? And once I figure out that science, I can deliver more value to the brand. I do think brands should really focus on where they see their ideal audience on LinkedIn. Because again, LinkedIn is a social media platform. You're going to reach a ton of people, but before you do your first partnership, you want to make sure you know what type of audience you want to reach.
Amazing. Any final takeaways, Brandon, before we will end today?
Yeah, final takeaways. I mean, I would just say if you do want to gain more brand partnerships, find the brands that are currently doing partnerships. I do think just naturally it's going to be a lot easier to re-engage a brand that's already bought in than pitch a brand for the first time.
Amazing. And I'll give one final thing as well. I think that everyone is able to do partnerships. It just takes a little bit more effort than the next person. So if you are going to do outreach, that's already doing something better than the next person. But don't just do rapid fire outreach. Find the brands that are already paying, like the Chrome extension here. Find what brands are paying in your niche. Do targeted outreach. Create content already about the brand. De-risk yourself as a creator. Ask yourself, how can you de-risk yourself so that the brand has no other choice other than say, yes, Brandon is so perfect for this campaign. Post similar content, partner with similar brands, focus on being consistent with your content, build that niche, build that audience. You'll see a lot of things to come, especially I think in 2025, we'll see a lot more money flood the platform. So Brandon, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Have more questions in the comments. So I'm going to do my best to kind of go back.
Yeah, I'll get in there.
And feel free to reach out to us. But I'm going to pop up this slide here, and you can go ahead and you can see, you can scan this QR code, get early access to the Chrome extension. It's 100% free. Also, I added Brandon's link to follow him. So be sure to give him a follow on LinkedIn. DM us with any questions. And again, you are one paycheck away from kicking off that snowball effect of more brand deals. And also for brands and agencies, there's so much to come and so much opportunity. So on behalf of everything, Brandon, thank you so much again for being here, for kicking everything off. This will be recorded on our YouTube channel, and it was awesome having you.
Thank you so much, AJ.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.